Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Plus.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish. They're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
It's 1776. The new American army stands at the precipice of victory or defeat. These are the times that try men's souls. Will the British be expelled from Boston, the birthplace of the Revolution? Can you help turn the tide of the war? The American Crisis, War in the North, is the first full-length campaign guide by Nations and Cannons, a historical TTRPG setting for 5e. With new backgrounds, equipment, and additional character class options, like the courageous drummer or the fearsome Jaeger. Explore the 18th century American Northeast, introducing new playable characters with heroic key moments, like David Bushnell, inventor of the first combat submarine, and Polly Cooper, the Oneida woman who saved Washington's army. Meet real historical figures like Henry Knox, Molly Brant, Peter Salem, and others who risked everything. Don't throw away your shot. Support our Kickstarter today.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internet. Hello, Vic. And welcome to That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, joined as always by Jose Fuentes.
Hello.
And new co-host, David Rios.
Hello.
And tonight we're going to be talking about the evolution of superheroes. So discussions from changes in costume, powers, how story arcs evolve, and Possibly also talking about the change from Monster of the Week to 24 issue 2-year epics.
Wow, seriously.
Right. Oh, Patrick. Oh, Vic, you've been disproven. Yeah. And every little thing in between that we can think of. So,
What are you talking about, Vic? Del Taco clearly watches us.
Exactly. We need Del Taco to sponsor us still.
Right?
Well, I got my Guardians collector cup, but it's not really showing up in the background, so I'll put it there for...
Yeah, Rocket. We got 2 of those, and we got Rocket and Star-Lord.
Nice. Yeah.
And then my daughter tried to steal my toppers, and
of course.
I had to beat her down and kick her in the library or in the theater, and now
lay down the law. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, I guess we will start off with the obvious entry point here, which is our entry points. Obviously, the first Circle comic book was made in 18 some odd, but really comics as you know them came out of 30s and 40s, World War II. We weren't alive then, unless Jose is actually a vampire. There you go.
Shh, don't tell nobody.
But when I guess Jose and David, when did you get introduced to comics, and what was your entry point? What was it? Superheroes, or was it something else? But were you one of the few who got introduced through the romance comics?
Did you say the romance comics?
Yeah.
No, not the romance comics. That's for sure. Well, I guess I'll start. My entry into comics was Robotech.
Oh, yeah.
Used to love the Robotech show. Huge fan. Friend of the family's came over and came back with a bunch of the Kamiko Robotech comics.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, what's this? And from there, immediately ran to the comic store and picked up what they had and started rolling there. Ended up kind of branching out within the Kamiko line, with the Mage books, the Elementals. So kind of, slowly expanded there. When I initially started, wasn't a huge fan of like the printing at the time, color printing. It was all that crosshatch, dot printing. The Kamiko books were all on these, real nice paper, real, great printing and stuff, vibrant colors. But then it took a little while, and I slowly moved into Marvel because they had great stories and stuff like that. Really got sucked into X-Men and books like that, and then made my way into DC, Batman, Superman stuff, and Dark Horse, Aliens, Predators, things like that. So kind of went around that long way on there, but that's kind of how I got into it.
Okay.
I found my dad's Conan magazines underneath the bed.
Yes.
That was literally my entrance into comics, like just in general, which also spawned like my interest in like role playing and fantasy stuff. And
oh yeah. Conan was like, I feel like if for a lot of 80s kids that was the catch-all, where this is your entry into comics, D&D, the arcade. It's got a little bit of everything. All right. Well,
you got to go to the arcade?
Oh yeah, I'm just glad that arcades are making a comeback. And with booze now.
Listen, an arcade down here, you don't look in Florida, you don't look at it as like, oh, it's an arcade. Yes, I can go play Dragon Slayer or whatever, right? It's, oh, we're going to go play with the 55 plus people while they're playing on like the casino slot machines.
Oh no. Oregon's weird. We got a lot of barcades, so all right. We're going to get a bunch of drinks that are named after like characters from Super Smash Bros. And just set up a circuit on Mortal Kombat 2, and see where that goes from there. Pop's introduced through Thor. Vic, I started with a stack of X-Men protectors and a blue beetle from my family friend, and now I'm chronically poor.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the hobby. Introduced comics through Hagar the Horrible.
Nice.
Yeah. I guess, Jose, what was the first one you started collecting?
The first comic I started collecting. Man, that's a tough one. I kind of just picked stuff up here and there,
Sure.
not necessarily any one particular comic, but like when I seriously was like, I want to continue collecting these over and over and over again. I think it was in junior high, and this kid, we were doing testing, and this kid, it's funny, like I didn't even like him, the kind of kid, right? It's like any normal time I would never talk to him, except for like we were doing testing and we were done. I was bored, and I completely, because testing was done with a pen.
Mhm.
I had no paper, no nothing, just sit there and doodle with. And I was like, crap, I'm bored. I'm going to die. And I was like, he's like, hey, you want to read one of my comics? I'm like, sure. He gave me Detective Comics. I don't remember the number, but it was the Mudpack storyline.
Okay.
And so from then on, it was like, oh, dude, this is awesome. So I've been collecting Detective Comics since.
Okay.
And I've jumped here and there. You know, I did Marvel for a while. I loved Age of Apocalypse. I collect all the individual floppies for that. And I try my best to collect floppies for the series that I like, but a lot of stuff isn't where I like it. So I don't do a lot of like mainstream stuff.
Sure. That'll ever happen. Yeah. Pops started with collecting Avengers and Avengers, and still trying to complete it.
Right.
Vic, last run-in started me out for collecting instead of sporadically buying random stuff. Sure. Yeah. I started out with but similar story. I found my dad's Superman and X-Men, and then from X-Men saw the in-page like insert ads for X-Force, and being a child of 90s cyber violence, immediately got drawn into X-Force, and developed an unhealthy obsession with Cable. So
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, that was my entry into comics and collecting from that point, as well as my taste in heroes and pouches.
Yeah, Cable is actually my best friend's favorite character.
Nice. Yeah. I still need to get my X-Force minis for the Marvel tabletop game painted
You are
up. But, yeah.
slacking, Tim. Come
I
on,
know.
tighten up.
Right now I'm currently working on my Blood Bowl team.
Okay.
Yes. Let's see there. Yeah, so
No, my parents were like really cool. This was like what, the 80s and whatnot.
80s.
So nothing creepy.
probably lots of hairspray.
Right.
Yeah.
Cat lint.
Cat yes. Yes. If anyone send me submissions, they must include at least 2 combat straps full of pouches.
That's right.
So that kind of leads into an actual line of progression, which is the change in costumes from Golden Age to Silver Age, with very sleek, for the most part, sleek-looking costumes. Lots of the stereotypical spandex and the underwear on the outside. Then hitting the anti-hero revolution of the 90s, where everything had to be tactical, everything had to have pouches and giant guns and bulletproof vests.
That is Tim's era of comic books.
And not just now, I feel like obviously heavy metal and death metal inspired this, but I feel like there's been other things. I feel like we're in a weird era of power armor and like inspired fantasy armor on modern characters. Like even, I mean, Captain Britain with Betsy Braddock right now is full on pauldrons and arm guards.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't. I find it hard to read X-Men books right now.
Okay.
Like you have to like evidently know every bit of everything that's going on, otherwise you're lost. Well, at least I am anyway.
Right. That's what I collect the collected editions now. I've given up on floppies for the most part.
Right.
Everything has to be collected edition because then I'm getting at least something that's supposed to be self-contained.
Unless it's like wow, I don't know what I just did. Unless it's like was it War of the Realms? War of the Realms. Even if you bought the collected one, you still had to buy the other collected ones for like the Spider-Man and whatnot. But I did collect those floppy, so that was actually a good story. That was one of the few last Marvel storylines I actually read.
Right. Yeah. Vic also brought up Masked Man of Mystery, like Spirit, the classic designs of. I mean, Green Hornet also fits in there. The hats and trench coats, Darkman, all that stuff.
Was it Spirit? There's another one like it, like that's basically like Spirit. Oh, Phantom. Jeez.
Yeah, but I guess obviously I stated my affinity for I think it's just because that's what I grew up with, the 90s anti-hero revolution idea of just pouches and bulletproof vests on everything.
Right.
Right. I don't care if he's bulletproof; he needs Kevlar.
That's what the patches are for. The patches protect him.
Yeah. So, from you guys, what were your takes on changes of costumes, designs over there? As any designs that you were particularly drawn to? Any changes you liked? Anything you thought was silly? Designs you now look back on? We kind of mentioned this in the pre-show, but perhaps some design, like Drax's cape, but designs you might look back on now and be like, that was a silly choice.
It's absolutely a silly choice, but I liked it.
Yes.
Yeah, and Gamora's, like I mentioned before, Gamora's green outfit, her green skin and all that. That
was it the green weird onesie bikini?
Yeah, with the
bathing suit. That's what I'm thinking of.
Flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever they went to the white suit, I think that was really an improvement, huge improvement.
Oh, like the white, almost like tech suit she was wearing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely, like emphasize. I don't want to emphasize, but definitely like accentuated her color better with just the white. I know it sounds weird, but
you have a cleaner look as well.
Yeah.
So, question: do you guys want me to share my screen?
Absolutely.
My coloring screen here. Should still be set up here.
Yeah, Crimson Avenger from Detective Comics. Yes, solid. I do think that a lot of like the old detective designs do still hold up. Some of them are a little goofy, but for the most part, I think they still hold up.
Like, didn't Crimson Avenger, didn't he have like a suit and whatnot with the cape?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that the question has just kind of stayed the same for however long.
Oh, the character, the question?
Well, there's been multiple characters of questions, but it's always like, even, I forgot her name.
Renee Montoya.
Renee Montoya is still more or less just the same costume.
Right, same principle for the costume.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Was it the hat, the Stetson, and but hers doesn't she wear like, I don't want to say like a tank top but like a white t-shirt. It's not the whole like full cleaned up suit. It's like it's almost like was it a noir kind of like style.
For the most part, she'll wear the same suit, but sometimes she'll have like the sleeveless button up with the tie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Frank Castle's actually been bouncing back and forth, which has been interesting. They just finished up the samurai storyline where he essentially was in fighting the hand, but still wearing Kevlar vest with his logo on it, but with the Oni horns on it.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, I mean, I guess you could wear bulletproof vest when fighting katanas. It's your personal choice.
It's Frank Castle. He has to.
Exactly. Pouches in the sort of yes. Do it. Yes. I'll write something that's very pouch friendly. This Vic and I discuss something possibly work related off stream. I don't know. Hardcore Ultraverse, hard case, yes. Yeah, Ultraverse had some really good designs as well. And we're not just saying that because of obvious biases.
No, those are just a given.
Yes. I think for me, my standout glow up as far as good change in costumes is going from Power Man to Luke Cage.
Like going from the yellow and black or whatever to.
Well, I'm getting the yellow and black in the first place was good, but going from the weird sunglasses and disco suit to
gotcha.
Yeah.
Was it like the chains around his arm and whatnot?
Yes.
And the headband.
Yeah, that was that was certainly a look, but
right.
Yeah.
I like how they in was it Marvel Knights they played that off, you know what I mean, in an episode, like a flashback of why he had the head thing on and why he had chains around his arm, and in particular why he had the yellow shirt.
Exactly.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Now obviously we're talking about kind of the bigger franchises with the longest runs here because that's where you see that evolution on the same character take place on the same characters. But obviously, the zeitgeist of the era will also influence the indies are coming out at the same time. And so you indies are out now, you see a lot of change from those that, from when they first popped off. Or even then looking at things like UT and Image and Valiant from the 90s to now, there's quite a few significant design changes. All kind of following the same line, except I believe Ray finds ways to strip off more elements of clothing. He's a robot samurai and he must.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Spawn had a costume change. I mean, it wasn't drastic, it was just like a couple small things. I think he still has it the same style after the costume change, but Spawn had one. I remember Vibe from Justice League going through his costume change.
Yes.
That one was neat because in the issue he's we're going on a mission. Yeah, I can go put on my new costume, and it was this bright honking green and yellow costume.
Yeah. I think it's kind of something kind of interesting that has been happening with Spawn. More so, it's become more prominent recently with how they handle their team ups. Whenever they do a costume change, they'll also typically do a power change and just straight up a character change.
Right.
It'll still be same universe and oftentimes interact with the same old characters. But I feel like whenever they get the idea of we want to redesign, they just go flat out. All right. Brand new story, new character, new power set, same premise, and then eventually tie it back into the main Spawn timeline.
Spawn is weird. I'm not hating on it at all because you got to love something that has consistently running.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that is definitely one that you have to want to pick it up and to follow to keep track of where it's at, right? Because I actually like parts of, and I haven't finished reading it yet, but parts of King Spawn.
Oh yeah,
but I don't know what's going on.
Right. Well, Spawn is one of those things. It's and some of these longer running franchises are kind of the same thing, where it's kind of like Scotch, in that it has proven lasting power, but I don't know if I'd recommend it as someone's starting point.
Nice.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I mean, kind of talking about what Jose mentioned, where collecting floppies is hard now because you have to have so much back knowledge.
Right.
What I liked when they were kind of doing that, when every so often they would do a soft reboot where they decided, when what I thought was, what Marvel should have perhaps stuck with what saved them in like the 90s was the idea of the annual reboot where you're going to run issues 1 through 12 or 1 through 24, and then we're going to cut it, new storyline with those characters.
Right. I
We'll
like the annuals.
Yeah. And so you're giving people like easy onboarding points. You're making it easier to collect a run. But also, if you're hiring new artists or getting artists on all the time, you are going to get more costume changes and more design changes.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why I end up being like weird things where like especially a lot of the team ups or not team ups but ensemble series where you'll end up getting new issue 1 and like, wow, everyone here looks wildly different. Whereas like going from I can't remember if it was like I had the hard change like at Necrotia or right before Necrotia, but about that time. And then Deadly Genesis.
Wasn't it before Necrotia?
I think it was right before Necrotia. Yeah, where they're like, by the way, everyone in the X-Men looks entirely different now. Get used to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then was it during the Phalanx? Was it?
Yes.
The Phalanx. I don't remember what it's called. Covenant, Phoenix, Covenant. I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I think that's when was it? They brought out the all like blue, all yellow costume, right? With like the collar belts. I actually thought that was cool.
It's something. Random background noises.
That's right. I was waiting for you guys to hear the bells here at my house because we just got 2 new kittens. And we put bells on them so we knew where they were.
That's smart. Now, recently I've been having an issue with my cats tracking through my shelf of miniatures, so I need to figure that out.
You need to have a heartfelt conversation with your cat.
Apparently.
They definitely get into just about everything around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a cat, and he's one of our older cats, but he is definitely set in his ways that he will go up to the cabinet and open the door and let it hit, and then look at me like, are you going to feed me?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, dude, I put food down already. Like, I don't think you heard me, human.
Right.
No, they don't tend to hear the humans much or follow that.
There's sometimes though where I feel like they're capable of higher thought. They just choose to be spiteful.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Like,
everyone pacing under the desk here, wanting attention. But that's pretty much every day. So
right.
Okay, so we kind of mentioned costumes, and now let's get into before we get into story, how like story arcs have evolved essentially. But another thing that will change, I guess, based on how the writers perceive heroes, or what the editors want to do, or if they have something they need to level someone up for down the line. Heroes or characters getting new powers or new skill sets, or losing skill sets in some cases, sometimes handled great, sometimes handled poorly, sometimes not addressed at all, and it just happens and you're told to deal with it.
Right.
But I think one of the most iconic examples of all three is Superman. Just sometimes he wakes up with a different power, or sometimes he loses something, or sometimes you get a really good explanation as to why he now has heat beams, and other times like
we're just gonna say he can fly. Now he can fly.
Yeah, sometimes you get some like very poor excuse for why he got power, or something that's overdrawn and perhaps unneeded.
like turning red lightning and blue lightning.
Yeah, it's very silly. So I'll start off this one with it's a more recent thing, but something that I thought was very interesting and it is cool and is purely done as like a fan service power fantasy type thing was Eddie Brock getting the power of not just like the
King in
symbiote,
Black.
but the symbiote, like the void. He got Null's power after Null died to control the symbiote planet. Very weird, overdone power, but handled in such a way that it doesn't rest of the Marvel universe, because they make it very clear that it's out there in space. It can't come here. He's just now has random prophetic moments where he sees space stuff. But it wasn't something that happened overnight. They, for like a power change on that scale, they gave it a full, almost like 2-year buildup.
I was gonna say 2 issues, but that's cool if it was 2 years. Like if it was like in the plans for like a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah, was like and it was one of those things where like it felt like I feel like big publications were doing, where for most part it's self-contained, where it's all in the Venom comics, where you get the seeds planted, things develop, there's a small conflict with more questions, more development, and then eventually it builds and develops into a crossover event. Whereas some of the things that like 2013 X-Men,
King in Black.
Yeah, King in Black. Like 2013 X-Men was one of the things that like I could not stand, because that was when they were like the first time that they were trying out the current schedule that they now are doing with their 5 different teams, but not as well as they did it now. Whereas back then they're like, no, this one, like you get issue 1 of this one, issue 3 of this one, issue 4 of this one, and issue 5 of this one, and that's the complete arc for one character. Yeah, that was an evolution that I was not a fan of, whereas I felt like Eddie Brock into Kingdom Black handled that rather well, and that you just needed to read Venom and then buy Kingdom Black and you're good.
You're right.
Yeah. But then there's other things that are very goofy where my brain went out on me, but I feel like Xavier's had some of the goofiest power scaling changes throughout the years, where it's just entirely dependent on the writing team at the time.
Right now, now doesn't Xavier look like a grown-up version of the kid from East to West?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For anybody,
one of the
read East to West.
One of the books that I did back when I was working for Marvel Malibu was when Xavier did the whole Onslaught thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one of the very, very few times I ever went out and I went with some coworkers to a comic shop where they were coming to do a signing thing. I kind of got drafted into that, and I'm like, oh, well, I have this picture of Onslaught that I did, and didn't realize then that Onslaught had not been fully released. He'd been hinted at.
Nice.
So I'm like, oh, okay. So didn't get in trouble or anything, but it was one of those. I think I have that. Let me see.
That's another run that I actually collected. The entire run of floppies was the Onslaught storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not so much that he walks; it's just that he's able to form a teleconnection connection with the nerves in his legs and tell them to move.
Talking about for Eddie Brock?
For Xavier.
Or Xavier.
Yeah. And he has to wear the cerebral helmet at all times, otherwise he dies because his brain is on Omega juice right now.
Again, adult freaking child from East of West. That dude had the helmet on, and his helmet talked to him and taught him how to be evil.
Yes. The symbol I liked was from that 2013 era. X-Men with Cyclops when he had the full face mask with the X over the front of it. I thought that was kind of neat. But
was that when he was the bad guy? Is that when he was terrorist Cyclops?
Right. Yeah. Right. Or I think it was the third time he was the bad guy. This was right after Schism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the Onslaught.
Yeah.
It's fighting the Phoenix.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where I said earlier, where sometimes you give a character new power with an overcomplicated reason that you could have just. Sometimes a simple explanation to do better. I mean, we could easily just say that Forge whipped up some sort of like implant or whatever and just slapped on his legs and he's fine. That
would have made sense. You know what I mean? Because, oh yeah, Forge can take a freaking can of tuna and make a rocket out of it.
What's that like super advanced spinal like nerve surgery in the X-Men universe? So I'm like, you could easily just say that, you know, he got shoved in the tube and he's fine now.
Right. They made him his own metal suit like Box from Alpha Flight.
Yeah. So from you guys, Jose and David, what are some of your power evolutions, power changes, or developing or losing skill sets that you have appreciated, found goofy, or any like points in time where you thought a hero had a really good skill set that you wish they kept, or anything like that?
Let's see. That is a valid question. It'll make me think on the spot.
Well, one of the things that I like that they did is this is relating to X-Men was I really like what they ended up doing with Caliban, because you know my first experience in reading with him was like the times of the Mutant Massacre and stuff like that. So
you're talking about when Apocalypse beefed him up.
Yeah, when he beefed him up, made him he's now a hunter.
Yeah.
They bulked him up and all that. I think I really liked that iteration of him. So I thought that worked over well. One of the ones that I was kind of mixed on was when they redid Cannonball and made him basically an immortal and went from the really skinny kid to that. But then you had some of the things like the goggles and stuff like that. That was a little cheesy for me on that part. But
I like when he had when he was with New Mutants, when he had the purple jacket, like right at the beginning of X-Force. Because every time whoever drew him, they always had like the cheesiest grin when he was flying through the air.
Yeah.
Like, I always thought that was cool. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I tried to buy you a little time to think about that.
No, I appreciate it. I kind of had like I know Beast has gone through like several changes and stuff like that. I didn't like when they made him a cat. You know what I mean?
I didn't like that either.
I like the classic blue with like the black, like his hair kind of went back, almost Wolverine-esque, only small. But like when they made him a cat, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really? That's wow. But yeah, I like the Caliban, what they did to Caliban, because to me that led into a really good storyline with Archangel, and I liked Archangel. Where Archangel and Sabretooth fought in the snow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a great issue. Like that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Angel to Archangel to Angel to Archangel to Angel and Archangel.
Yeah.
It's also kind of a interesting evolution.
So I like Angel's one before Nightcrawler. Angel's one of my favorite X-Men, right? Like
Yeah.
feathered wings flying everywhere. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then like Mutant Massacre, and he lost his wings, and then he ended up getting the metal wings, which I thought were even cooler.
Right.
You get to like throw freaking metal feathers at people and like knock them out. Like that was neat. And then like just got real goofy with it, and like, oh yeah, now he's Apocalypse. He's trying to plant the Apocalypse seed and all kinds of weird stuff.
Mm-hmm. Subjective Perspective Collective asks, have you all heard of The Nasty? Which I guess is the ongoing book. I have not.
That's a book?
Yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately, just to answer.
I gotta look it up. Sorry.
Yeah. Vic says, I guess I'm not too familiar with too many public domain superheroes, but I don't know if anyone has any favorite ones of those. But I know those ones have been interesting because literally anyone can write those now. So there's a few indies that will have essentially the same hero
run
at the same time because no one can own the rights to it. So I don't know if anyone's been tracking any of those recently.
I haven't.
I don't know. Didn't Transformers just come up and like their licensing came up?
I think Transformers has something that's in public domain. I don't know if their full thing's going, but I know they're having an issue with IDW.
Well, they lost. Like IDW lost the rights for Transformers comics.
Yeah,
somebody needs to pick it up because I need more Transformers comics. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
They were losing quite a few because they also lost the Star Wars High Republic stuff.
Yeah. They wanted to. I believe they're trying to like narrow down their focusing, but instead of doing like full on rollbacks, that was their idea of saving money. It was just dropping the IPs they're working on.
And they did, like I said, I need more Transformer comics.
Yeah, I used to be big in the original stuff, but more of the TV show related stuff. I did enjoy the original G.I. Joe stuff.
The comic, like with Mike Zeck and whatnot?
In both the comics and that. I remember this is really the big geek in me is I used to have all of the Transformers and G.I. Joe, and pretty much they all got taken from me at some point. I don't but I remember like I had built this display because I had multiple anything I could mail away for and get like Koepp, Destro. So I had this big display that was pretty much right out of the comics and actually the TV show commercials for the comics. So I had this big display that was the three-way battle between Cobra Commander, Serpentor, and Destro's army, his Iron Grenadiers. And I even had as much as the Hiss tank with the Baroness strapped to the top of it with Serpentor in there. But yeah, I used to love the books and a lot of those storylines and stuff. So, and the Transformers the same way. I had pretty much most of those, particularly the early ones. It's a shame that they ended up getting stolen from me. So
all that
what happens?
Good gravy.
Yeah, that's what happens when your roommate tends to leave the garage door open at night and go to bed.
Yeah.
But it was a fun time. It's really cool, and actually, my day job boss is a huge Transformers fan, so he's got a lot of that. So we've had some conversations, about some of the stuff, and a lot of people, familiar with Optimus Prime wasn't always Optimus Prime. He was originally Orion Pax.
Yep.
The cool stuff like that. And I remember getting blown away when the Transformers movie came out. Oh, wait, Transformers can die? Well, what is this?
Right.
But it was very, very well done.
Yeah, I've been trying to relive my childhood because I ended up losing I didn't have a lot of Transformers growing up just because we couldn't afford it when I was younger. But now that I'm older, I'm like, I want this one, and I want this one, and I want this one. I think I'm making up for it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I used to do, when I would do yard work, going mow somebody's lawn and then get paid and go buy, Transformers, aerial bots, stuff like that. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's my family didn't have money to go buy them, so I basically started working and going buying them myself. So, but fun stuff.
I completely feel that.
Yeah.
That was the grind when you're 10, mowing people's grass, shoveling their sidewalk and whatnot.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know. Who was it that you just posted up there?
It's subjective, yeah. It's not quick collected because the entire collection was stolen during a move.
Yeah, that's the thing. I moved from one house to another, and that's when everything disappeared. All of the G.I. Joe Transformers. And it was kind of funny because, the series, everything from the very first ones of the swivel arm, or without the swivel arm battle grip and all that stuff, is I had something like all of the figures from the first 10 series, except for one. And the one that I was missing was what is it? General Hawk. And I ended up finding that one on eBay, I think. And then when I went to go put it with the other one is when I realized that all the other ones were gone. So the one I was missing is actually the only one I have left from that set.
I have, let's see, can I swivel my? So I obviously lost between all the 87 million moves I've done in my life. I lost a bunch of toys and stuff growing up. My friend Jay, we went to a convention and we were talking before. My favorite, I know everyone likes, Snake Eyes and stuff like that. My favorite G.I. Joe is Tunnel Rat, right? So my friend went out and bought me Tunnel Rat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's constantly hanging up over here just because, that's friendship. When your friend knows, yep, he likes this guy, I'm just gonna hook him up.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. So another franchise that I really like is the Rocketeer stuff. Dave Stevens stuff is fantastic, and I really liked when they did the movie that they followed that very closely.
Cat, told you.
Oh, okay.
Kitten just attacked me.
Yeah, but it was I think it was Joe Johnston that did it, and he also did a lot of the feel and stuff for the first Captain America Avenger movie.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, really enjoyed that. Sorry.
Was that Tim? It's usually Tim getting phone calls from the president.
No, that's just a reminder. I didn't realize it was still going, so sorry. I apologize for that.
No, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So, as you alluded to now, is why collecting floppies is hard. Is the way that superhero stories are told has also evolved. There's you always had recurring villains or through lines. If you're Prince Valiant, you have a 15-year arc, but
Right.
it seems like we have gone, things have personally gone further and further spaced apart, where we had the Monster of the Week setup to the every 6 issues was a complete arc to some rather long and protracted 300 issue storylines. Then jump back to a 1-year reboot, and now it seems like we're heading back towards the longer and longer runs. So I don't know if I personally have. I think my favorite in there is the 1-year soft reboot or once every 2 years soft reboot. That idea of just giving you time to develop stuff and let a story breathe, but also giving you easy ends. But was there ever a period of time that you thought that was your preferred method of storytelling in comics that you liked? Did you like any one of the iterations where you knew if you're going in and getting an issue that was the full story at the moment, or
So I like having basically what year-long storylines, right?
Yeah.
So you would have the year-long basically storyline, and then you would have within the last 4 months or something like that, they do a big crossover, right?
You
So
do the event.
What was it? War of the Gods for DC Comics.
Yeah.
That was, what I mean? Every book had their own storyline up until, and then they kind of converged just for that story, just for the crossover,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're like, oh, so this is a crossover I want to get. I missed the first 2 issues. I don't have to go back, 12 years to figure out when they started this storyline. I just got to go back a couple issues. I actually like that. I like that concept.
Yeah, it's easy just to have your book that you like and to read that, and then when you get to the storyline, maybe either bulk up your shop pickup at that month, or just get the collection when that drops. But yeah.
And I know personally there's a couple shops that they don't like. I don't think they like trade paperbacks, right? You know what I mean? Buy floppies, trade paperbacks, you waiting till the last minute. And I get that.
Yeah.
But sometimes, okay, so as an artist, right? I'm kind of an introvert. I don't necessarily go out the house. I try my best to go out at least twice a week, but I'm always home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of going to pick up a book for a storyline and consistently stay with it is kind of hard for me. So if I can either get it as a collection, great. But I have the last 10 issues of Detective Comics I haven't caught up with yet.
Right. My problem is that there's so much content out there that I enjoy that keeping up with individual floppies seems like an absolute nightmare.
I can see that.
Yeah. So instead of trying to track 3 things from Marvel, 2 things from DC, and then 10 independents, I'm all right, when's the next big slab of material you can get at one go?
Right. Well, like I said, with War of the Gods, I mean, it was what, a 6-issue miniseries, I think?
Yeah.
It wasn't very big, but you knew you can get this issue and you catch up with this. It might touch into the other real books, right?
Right.
Just for a little flavor, just to brush up against it. But with War of the Realms for Marvel, you kind of have to
track everything.
Yeah, you have to get the Avengers, and then you have to get Spider-Man and whatever it is where he was working with other people the elves and whatnot. You know what I mean? If you want to collect the Spider-Man story, which is they're all cool.
Yeah,
and I pretty much have them. I think I may be missing 1 or 2, but I'm not going to go and try and find them because it's a lot.
Right.
Keep it simple, keep it minimal, 4-issue, maybe 6-issue miniseries. Like I said, War of the Gods was a great one for me. But something of that nature.
Right.
Like even Crisis on Infinite Earths wasn't ginormous in that you had to collect every other comic out there from DC in order to read it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And if you are going to do a giant one with you're touching into every other book, do like Marvel's Onslaught series and label them.
Oh yeah.
Phase 1.
Yeah.
Right, phase 1 of 3, phase 2 of 3. You know what I mean? They definitely labeled it to make it easier. Like that's probably why it's one of the few like actual like runs that I collected, like in regards to like the big crossovers, because I was able to keep track of it.
Right. I thought it was interesting. I think was it Countdown to Apocalypse, Countdown to Armageddon, something. But it was before Secret Wars when they're doing the storyline setting up that there are incursions happening. And where the idea is that you didn't necessarily need to bring the order, but if it's tied into that, you had the header.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other one was it Battle World? For Marvel? That was hard for me to keep track of too, because I'm like, I don't understand.
There. As indie books, you always have that soft reboot because miniseries are the main thing. Yeah. I mean, that is definitely one of the appeals of collecting indies over collecting, like, mostly the biggest two. Dark Horse is better about it, but
I mean, miniseries are good for like flesh, not so much fleshing, but like basically just testing the waters to see if like people actually like the character or not, you know, or like something enough to continue on, you know, to make it more.
Yeah. And if it's like super indie, then usually that's looking for one go.
But my problem with that is that like was it Rob Liefeld's Awesome Comics or Awesome Studios or whatever?
Yeah.
So many where like they just tested the waters. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, stop. Just one storyline. Can we just keep it going? Like this, it's the same characters, I promise. You're just like, and don't get me wrong, Rob Liefeld's a genius. He's a little weird, but he's a genius. He's like Doc Brown from Back to the Future.
Right. I think actually my favorite method of it's popped in my back of my head. My favorite method of publishing comics is really weird because it's very antithetical to how comics have worked. Is how TKO does it, where it's just they put it out like traditional book, only it's you'll have team work on something, complete 3 volumes, release 3 volumes in one go. You can either buy 1 or all 3,
right?
And then they'll work on the next set, which is not how comics have historically worked. But if you are just looking to go and pick up a complete book and head out, it's it. Yeah.
I mean, that works for them, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I feel oversaturated with Marvel movies. I feel like we're oversaturated with franchises in general. I mean, I'll watch Marvel movies because they're fun and but
Tim recommends going to watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So
I do. I think it's the best of the current phase of Marvel movies.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
I cried. It made a grown boxing man cry. So there's that. But I mean, I thought Renfield, like, it's a flawed movie, sure, but I thought it was a kind of a breath of fresh air because it's like, this is a nice one and done. I don't need this to be part 1 to 15.
Right. Don't spoil that one. I haven't seen it yet. That's on my list.
That's good.
Like, I'm excited for that one because it looks so dumb and so funny.
Oh, it's 100% camp in the best way.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. It's Nick Cage embracing full camp, and he's not in too many of the ads. That's not the
first time he was a vampire.
It's not, no. But he's not in too many of the ads, but Ben Schwartz is also in it. So Ben Schwartz opposite Nick Cage and like slapstick comedy is
Which
fantastic.
Ben Schwartz? That's that dude from Parks and Rec, right?
Yes, yeah, the money,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That dude is. Let's see. I'm not quite sure how he got a job in Hollywood, even though you can tell how he got a job in Hollywood. He just talked his way into it, literally. That guy can keep talking forever
Oh yeah.
and just babble and ramble, but that's like half the appeal for like watching his characters in almost everything I've seen him in.
Yeah. Now to kind of get into the, I guess, meat and potatoes of why we're talking about evolution. Obviously, art is reflective of the current zeitgeist, and it can be done well, it can be done poorly. Things will naturally change because people change, times change, and all that. Reason why comics now are not the same way that they were in the 90s, 80s, 50s, 60s, and vice versa. But with where we exist as independents, we kind of have a little more grace, I feel like, making those evolution changes because, kind of the next point, usually end up working more so in miniseries or series that are by definition finite. You don't have the contract stating that Batman must go on for this.
Right.
Yeah. But you can definitely see, where things pull from in the past and going forward. Like, and my brain is now farting out of me. You can see where things have taken inspiration from in the past and gone forward and changed for Earth. Like, curse words now would not exist if we didn't have the weird ripped wizard phase that happened in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
And the pull away from the comic code.
Yes. And a bunch of other stuff. So, from your perspectives, what are your thoughts on, do you like sort of the freedom that indies have to, change more willingly, or do you think that there is, if you're running something that is super long, there's that inherent issue of changing to keep up with new artists that are entering the field? Because I definitely think that some of the issues why we think that some of these things are so goofy is because you have the problem with maybe some of these IPs should have been left to finish at some point. So I want to grab your thoughts on that. I'm talking about the comic curse words, not the act of cursing. Just for
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the comic curse words?
Yeah, well, the comic I mentioned, curse words, is like you can definitely tell that the team that worked on that pulled inspirations from like Frazetta art and like the size of panel vans and.
So,
but do you think that having issues that run for so long makes it harder for them to? Having series that run for so long, it makes it more difficult for them to change and adapt as new arts come on. That's why you end up getting, moments where people fall off because like, oh, this doesn't feel like my Batman anymore.
I felt the same way about Deadpool personally.
Yeah.
Deadpool was funny when he first came out and whatnot, but the movies and whatnot, and like I said, the removal of like the comic code and stuff like that, that allowed for more profane take on Deadpool, which I don't like personally. Mm-hmm. But I think if you do like as independent creators, I know a lot of other books that they write like they speak, I guess, as opposed to writing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel you got to compensate personally because I don't like the idea that my kids might pick up a book that has like, people are dropping F-bombs and crap like that in it. Right. But I don't think that whether it's a miniseries or not is going to change or makes it difficult or easier to incorporate that because that's been incorporated into mainstay comics anyway. You know what I mean? Into like Marvel and whatnot, like the longer characters. Like was it there's that issue of Batman Black, whatever, when Batman was like at the end, he was like de-suiting himself, and like they had to like omit part of it because the dude drew the bat dong. I mean, that's an established character.
Right.
I know they sent it through like a mature line, but
Right. There's certainly like the it feels weird, especially when you kind of like issues of like what like how every generation has a different form of what's considered socially acceptable.
right.
But I mean, even just like with like another issue you get with like having longer run stuff is you get to the issue of I think we get caught up on curse words, and curse words is a comic, not the actual concept of cursing. But it's a joke on magic curses.
Oh,
yeah,
I totally got hung up on the word.
yeah.
Oh,
But
good.
no, good. I think Vic did also. But even like with I think in a lot of times why we have the issue also with things like I mean, costuming is something that I think is totally fine. That like it doesn't really matter how much that changes over time because aesthetics change over time. But with power scaling, I mean that's like the common joke with Dragon Ball Z and anime and stuff is that you're always one-upping the previous arc, and comics have been doing this for so long. So Superman's been one-upping himself for 80 some odd years.
Can you one up Superman dying?
Right. Well, yeah. Superman coming back to life with like 3 new power sets.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So, but with indies, you can always try to one up your competition, but usually it leads to weird storytelling. But usually with indies and things that have a finite timeline, you end up getting things that might feel a lot more relatable and are easy to read because they're built in that time for when they're published without scaling. It's just, this is the art encapsulated, whereas you have something where you can feel the 80 years tacked onto it, essentially.
Right. Well, I, for one, like the OG. I think I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, was it the old comics were like the stories were very simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like Superman is going after some gangster, and you know what I mean,
Right.
grabs up a car, right? That's a very simple storyline. So, like, okay, 20s gangsters, that's it's very simple. And then you jump to like the 80s, and it's a little more. I don't want to say a little more violent, but like I feel the 80s storylines were better, just because I think there was more thought process to them, and more character development. And then you have like the 90s where no, let's get everybody a gun and give everybody like giant arm shoulder pads and stuff like that. Like we have to like blast a hole in everything. And then I feel that personally that once you hit like 2000, the storylines and stories kind of got a little convoluted.
Right.
And we're a little harder to understand because like, we're gonna change we're gonna change Batman up. We're gonna change this X-Men up. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I feel like that's why something like Matt Fraction's take on Hawkeye was so received, is because that run he cut away everything. Like we're going to reference like a few things in the past, but it's just Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, and the Russian mob. Yeah,
that was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the moment where he drank a full pot of coffee and then just signed to get into the car, but
right.
that's all right. But yeah, the kind of strip away everything is like, here's the simple story of Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, the Russian mob, and Lady Death. You don't need much else than that.
What were they called? What was the mobsters called? Right? There was we all wore the same like running suits or whatever.
The tracksuit.
Tracksuit mobster. Yeah. So good.
Yeah, I really like kind of the two spectrums. One of the things that I really liked about the Maid stuff was the small simple story here's a self-contained thing. You have the view of somebody who, you don't know what's going on, but the guy doesn't know what's going on. Kevin Matchstick doesn't know. His life is now just upended and all this. So, and it takes you on a magical voyage, and what it takes to be an unwitting superhero. But then, kind of what Jose had touched on is, once you started getting into, the big stories, the Dark Knight Returns, the Killing Jokes, those, you really started getting into a lot of the deeper nitty grit. So I kind of flip back and forth. I like my, flamboyant, fun little stories here. But then I also like the in-depth, things like the Frank Miller run on Daredevil. It's just, that was thought-provoking, whereas the other one was just kind of, more fun. It gave a lot of depth, and a lot of things changed. You had a lot of the stuff. I remember sitting, in the movie theater with the Tim Burton Batmans with my dad, and his experience was the Adam West, 60s campy ones, and it's just like, no, Batman's not like you remember anymore. He is, he is dark on a level, and everything's dark. So, kind of going through that time and the books and the storylines, everything was, in depth. So I totally agree with, what Jose's saying about that time frame and how, they had a lot of great stories going on at that time.
Yeah. I think there's a place for both, and both can be done well or poorly. Where my favorite comic is Tokyo Ghost, which is
great. Sean Gordon Murphy.
Yeah, which
That's
is
a great story.
Yeah, it's a 12-issue run, and it's all contained in that.
I was gonna say it did have its floppies, but it's just, that's it. You don't need anything else but that run.
Yeah, it's all self-contained, and there's moments where like it has that moment where like it kind of leaves you wanting more, because you want more world building, all that stuff. It does a good job. But on the opposite end, I absolutely loved the 3 to 5 years building up the Vulcan taking over the Kree Empire.
That's
can't remember the birds.
Shi'ar.
The Shi'ar.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 or 4 years of Vulcan taking over the Shi'ar and then going to war with the Immortals.
Yeah, he went to war with the Inhumans. That was during War of the Kings.
War of the Kings, yeah, which is built up in Deadly Genesis, which is set up in all this other stuff. But I don't think that, it takes a certain team to put that together.
Right.
I think there's kind of, no matter where you look at,
great artwork too.
Yeah. So I think that having both the classic style like Monster League setup, as well as the more modern idea of the epic, I feel like both can be done well or poorly. So I agree with you guys there. And so going forward, in indies, I feel like outside of partly due to just the nature of how indies handle their houses compared to the big two, outside of like things like Image and a few others, haven't really had a chance yet to do great wide-spanning epics outside of TKO, Vault, and Image to some extent.
Well, What was it? Valiant. Didn't Valiant have a huge crossover that like
where they had a huge thing with
and was it Ray or and
Ray, Ninjak, and
yeah.
Bloodshot and Hope all came together in one thing, and then I can't remember the name of the comedy duo they have, which actually I need to read more of.
Quantum and Woody, right?
Yes, Quantum and Woody.
Quantum and Woody, great book.
Yeah, I need to read more of them. But yeah, they're kind of. I feel like they kind of because that was still. Well, I guess that wasn't more recent, but yeah. Do you think that going forward we are going to see more independent creators fall in that same evolution of creating longer stretching stories, or do you think that with digital technology perhaps also alleviating some of the strain of no longer having to physically ink a page every time as much as Jose rages against the sky?
I love inking traditionally. I can't even tell you how much I love inking in traditionally.
Yeah,
like I haven't even used my inks, but they're still sitting on my desk, ready, calling to me, please, please add me to some paper.
But do you think going forward we're going to see indies fall in that same evolution of stretching out stories and creating longer stretching narratives, or do you think indies will stick in the shorter self-contained area?
I think that a lot of indie creators are all they all have ADHD, so I don't think that
I resemble that remark.
I know you do. That's why I'm comfortable saying it.
Yeah.
But tell me I'm wrong, but you get to a point where you write a story, and you may set yourself to write a story, but then maybe halfway through you're like, oh dude, that gives me an idea for another story,
right? Yeah.
So no, I think the idea that the long-winded 2-year 3-year branching storylines, I don't think that those are gonna make a comeback in indie comics. Personally, that's my personal thought.
Sure.
Because of that, because indie creators want to get as many things as they can out, and I kind of hope that they do, in at least not so much one storyline spread across 3 years, but definitely keep a consistent ongoing series. You know what I mean? Ongoing series are great. With Todd McFarlane's on issue 1 million or whatever of Spawn. So
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not all the same storyline, but it's the premise is the same, and it's obviously a bunch of storylines, but people can jump in when they want. I like storylines that are short, especially if it's a crossover storyline.
Oh, yeah.
If Silverline, I know we have Silverline team ups, right? But if Silverline did a massive cat and mouse / champion / obsolete / I don't know, divinity crossover, you know what I mean? I would hope that we keep it down to 6, maybe 10 issues,
right?
Just to make it a little more manageable. But I mean, I think that would be cool, but I don't see it happening with any other creators, to be honest with you. I don't know a lot of people that have as many books independently, as many books out as at our level of Silverline. I mean, there's Boom and other stuff like that, but not where we're at. You know what I mean? We have a lot of different books for a lot of different people's a lot of different interests. So.
My thought is you might get someone in the same vein as Todd McFarlane. I call it having DM syndrome. The idea you want to DM a story for 2 years, where they have their own personal brainchild that they need to get out, and it takes them 2 years to do so. But I think it'll be a special breed of that. I think for the most part, a lot of indies are like, okay, I have an idea for a story, and I can wrap it up in 6 issues. Great.
Right. And then think about it. If you're crowdfunding that, that's you're asking people to keep putting in on. I mean, you do the same thing when you go to a comic shop and buy from the big companies, but you're asking people to back your book or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily come out all at once, but I mean, you're saying please, right?
Right.
So So maybe they will, but I think the days for like long crossovers might be heading out the window.
Right.
But I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Because I loved Crisis on Infinite Earths. You know what I mean? Wasn't a big fan of Hyper Time. But yeah, that's my thoughts anyway.
Okay. David, do you have an opinion on that, or?
It's okay. You can call me a fool if you think I am.
No, sorry, I kind of got sucked into what I was doing here.
It's great art, yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it's sorry. I'm just, my mind's kind of jumped over into what I'm doing here.
It's just in art mode, yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I'm just kind of playing around and looking at what. There's a lot of like on this one. There's a lot of skin, so
All right.
it's like, how can I? I'll have to go back and zoom out and cut out.
Right.
And
You want to get texture in, get your, you know what I mean?
How many layers for this highlight?
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah, exactly.
2 layers.
But so I had totally lost track with what.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I know I was listening to the Crisis and stuff like that, and the story arcs and all that, but I kind of my mind shifted.
You're perfectly fine. See, Jose, I would be with you in 2 layers, but I have a friend who, when he paints skin, he's a realist, so he does. I think he did 14 layers to get 1 blend.
What?
Yeah.
Who did?
One of my friends. He's we do he's a part of our the YouTube channel that I'm on.
Wait, are you talking about painting or are you talking about digital work?
Painting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I can actually feel that.
Yeah.
Right. But digitally, I was like, what? 2 layers? You need maybe 2 layers, 3 layers if you want.
2 layers and a blur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually do everything on the colors on a single layer.
Even between the highlights and the shadows.
Yeah.
Okay.
I keep my shadows because sometimes I'll throw in shadows and then I'll like, you know what? I don't know if I like it here, so I always do it in a separate layer just so if I have to take something away, I can.
No, I just cut everything and I duplicate before I apply anything.
Right.
And I do a flats layer so I can just reselect what I need to easier and just go back to that flat layer. But otherwise, I do pretty much everything on here other than effects.
Right.
I tend to do effects on different layers. Like here, this is the one I was showing you before, Jose. But
yeah.
But yeah, the line art effects and things I tend to do on separate layers, but pretty much everything else all goes on this colors panel.
Oh, I was just about to say, are you lettering it too? But it was already lettered, right?
No, it was lettered. Yeah,
okay.
This is what it originally. Let me take this out here, and this was originally all flat like this. So I cut out a lot of this.
You told me that you colored over the zip, over the halftones.
Yeah, I cut them out, cut them completely out, and then went through and loaded those effects as separates. Kind of give it a little farther pushback. But yeah, it's just some of these pages have a lot of faces and a lot of stuff. Like this double page here is just like faces after faces after faces after faces.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is some of the stuff that takes takes me a while to cut in. And like on this other page here, usually on skin tones, I tend to stay more away from hard lines. I do soft lines.
Okay.
But then when it comes to clothing and stuff is where I start to put hard lines in.
Right.
I usually tend to brush in the darks and then cut in the highlights. So that's where you get some of this with the brushing and that. But the skin tones, I tend to go through and keep that softer. So, but you know, like I said, you got to get the foundation, and then you can go back and cut in. Like I can already see now what I'll end up doing is in this section back here is I'll end up darkening it to kind of push it back and try and make his hand stand out a little bit more.
Separate
layer it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And same thing, I kind of darkened in here around his leg to bring the his tail out a little bit more. But I'll probably end up going even more and tone out some of the highlights in the back to kind of push that leg back a little bit more. But yeah, this is all the stuff that's going through my head right now. So, but please continue.
Well, we're actually coming up on our end mark here, but we were just talking about if we think that anyone in the independent scene might end up following the same evolution of creating expanded epics, not necessarily to the same extent as larger franchises have, because that has the whole weird thing of having company-owned IP as opposed to creator-owned IP, but idea of someone I called it Dungeon Master Syndrome, where some person might want to take 2 years to tell an extended story or something, and force the readers to be their players. But did you have any thoughts on? Do you think, for the most part, independents will stick to the smaller run idea, or do you think anyone will try to follow in Todd McFarlane's footsteps or do their own thing and create an extended storyline?
Well, I think it depends on the level of the independent. I mean, we when we start getting into, you have your Marvel, DC, then you've got your, kind of next level down, your Dark Horse and stuff like that. That level I think could stand to, go into a little bit longer, not nearly as big as the large companies, Marvel and DC, because they've got resources, they've got books, they've got people that they can throw at it. But when you start talking about the really small, the small independent publishers, no, I don't see that going through. I think I see everything being like a project. Let's go through set number of issues. We'll tailor it, to keep that attention on, shorter runs, and based off the popularity, we will come out with a second volume, or something like that. Yeah. I think that's still the way things are going to go. You do have Image and McFarlane does kind of fall into that same kind of grouping as the as the Dark Horse and the larger volume. So that's why we're seeing that the McFarlane stuff has been really good, and we saw a lot of high runs with like the Savage Dragons, stuff like that. But for the smaller companies, I think a lot of it is a question on how it's a daily grind. It's how do they keep a certain amount of the market, and for them to sit there and say, well, I'm going to keep this story going, at least we're going to plan out and map out the next 50 issues, and we'll slowly pace the story to go along with that. I just don't think that's feasible.
Yeah.
Will they reach 50 issues, through various things? They can absolutely do that. It's all a big push on, the creators and their drive and all that. It's just a matter of, mapping it out and going that way. They can, I see them possibly, kind of storyboarding, where can this go?
Right.
But I think it's still a lot more focused on, shorter runs, and let's give people a feeling of a conclusion. And, we want them to, maybe want the next thing. Maybe they bring in, a new batch of characters, that are adding to it, but, a different storyline and change of pace and stuff like that. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very good. Well, that has been that Silverline show on Tuesday. Since this is your first show with us, David, feel free to stick around after we hit our credits, because usually we hang out after we go off the air. But thank you all for watching and chatting along. Sid, I see you already head out, so have a good night. Or actually, no, it's Vic. My bad. But yeah. Let's see there. Let me pull up our schedule to see what we have scheduled for next week. They sent the calendar to my Ron email, so I always have to log into a separate Chrome in order to pull it up. All right. Next week is going to be the business of comics, potentially with Roland on. Start talking about the publishing editorial side of things.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so we'll be on then. Be sure to check out Wednesday Wham and Silver Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern on those respective days.
They're cool. Not as cool as us.
All right. We'll be back next week. So until that time,
make mine Silverline. I can see it.
Make mine Silverline.
Okay.
There you go. See.
Thanks.
Yes. Very good.
Hi, I'm Bill Black. I created FemForce. But you know what? Today, make mine Silverline.